Hi everyone and welcome to another video. You need to change spaces, so there, that's a little bit better. I'm Noan Mecca and today I'm going to talk about my reading goals for the second quarter of 2021, and I'm going to do that by first evaluating how I did with my goals in the first quarter of 2020. This video is going to tie in a lot with, first of all, the video that I made about my goals for 2021, and with the video that I also made recently, which I will also post up here, in which I talk about how I've been feeling rather overwhelmed by all of the books that I want to read and this fear of missing out, and how that probably comes from the fact that I have too many things that I want to do and therefore don't have time to just pick up whatever. So if you're really interested in this, I would suggest you go watch that one first. But otherwise, let's dive into the goals that I set myself for 2021, which now officially are the goals that I set myself for the first quarter of 2021, because on my video about being overwhelmed, I got a lot of very nice reactions and people talking about their experience. And one of the tips that I got is to not set myself goals for too long a period. So right now I've decided that I'm going to look more on a shorter scale and decide what I'm going to do for the next period, which, seeing as we're already at the end of April, which is just going to be for May and June, and then I'll see again once again for the last 2 quarters of the year. Anyway, let's start with, before we attack the goals that I set myself reading wise, I also set myself a couple of TBR style goals, with the idea of reading the books that I have on my shelves and not buying too many books. And we need to talk about those first. It's going to be very short. So first of all, I had decided I wanted to give myself a fixed monthly budget to buy books with. Second, I decided that when I got books from a free library, or mini beep as they're called here, if I got one, I also had to put away one that I still had on my shelves and just wasn't getting to. Then we had the rule that I wanted to read 5 books from my TBR before I bought one, and I didn't want to buy books that I hadn't previously already decided I want to read, so not get books on a whim, but only books that were already on my radar. And this is where this part is going to be very fast, because I did none of this. Yeah, I did none of this. I did have some restraint. I don't think I bought per se a lot of books, and I think the size of my TBRs has stayed relatively the same, though I haven't really counted the books that I bought last month. I had a little spree last month when I bought 4 books. But as I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed and meh, I'm going to allow myself some slack on these rules and not take them with me for the next quarter, but also not make myself hate myself because I didn't do this. Things are what they are not bad, therefore they are fine. I can show myself a little bit of love. So let's dive into the other goals that I set myself. This is the complete list. First, 1 reread a month, 1 classic a month, 15 to 20% French written books, 15% authors of color, 1 German book in the whole of the year, 4 gender non-conforming authors in 2021, so that's 1 every 3 months, and no translated books if I could have read the original, and a maximum of 10 books a month. I've already kind of looked at my stats, so let's dive into that with you. First of all, so we have the rereading 1 book a month. I can't reread 1 book a month, obviously. I have, as of now, reread 4 books, and we're halfway through April, and I'm halfway through another reread. So you would say that I'm doing very well on this, and this is an easy rule that I can do. Yes, it is. But what I find is that the books that I've reread are short books, and are books that I'm also trying to tie in with other rules, goals, things that I want to do. So I think 2, if not 3, were buddy reads, and 1 was a classic. So I'm not really getting to read the books that I really want to reread, and I'm not prioritizing those books because I'm always finding myself, when I make my monthly TBR, which works quite well because I do read those books, it's at a later stadium that I think, oh wait, and I also have to reread one, and then pick a small book or pick a book that is also something else. And that shows me that this isn't really working, and in a time where I am going to prioritize, because this feeling of being overwhelmed has a lot to do with having too many things that I want to do, and I want to prioritize things a little bit more. So I've decided that I'm not going to reread a book every month, or at least not force myself to reread a book every month, and just go on a whim a little bit more. So that's that for that rule. Then we have, I wanted to read one classic a month. And when I was looking at my stats, I realized that, so this is the pie chart that I made about the genres right now. And I have a problem that some books have multiple genres, because now you can see classics isn't even on the pie chart, and that is because it's right now only one book and it's too small a category for Excel to show it. But there are books that I've just simply marked as another category. For example, one of the classics that I read is Le Horla by Maupassant, which is a classic. It's a French classic, but it's also kind of a folktale-ish kind of thing. So I marked it as folktale. Therefore, it doesn't show. So when I counted, I have read 4 classics, which is well within what I wanted, and I'm happy with that. But again, reflecting on what my priorities are, this is something that I like to do, but honestly, does it make me really super happy? And is it something that I want to prioritize? No. So this is another goal that I am not going to take on with me for at a later stage. And with these taking, I mean, I'm not going to do it in the second quarter of 2021, but I might pick it up at a later stage in the year or in my life if I feel like, oh, I really feel like reading some classics right now. But then I can do multiple of those. That could be an idea. So the next goal that I had is that I wanted to read 15 to 20% French books. This is my beautiful pie chart. As you can see, I'm at 31% French books, and I'm really super happy about that. I don't know if it's been good for my French, per se. I like to think so, though I don't really have any proof. I'm not happy about Dutch being only 10% of my reading. English is still too big a part, but again, this is not something that I want to prioritize. I'm going to keep the wanting to read 15 to 20% French authors, but I think it's not something that I now struggle with doing every month. I don't know, but I'm going to keep this goal because I hate that I'm losing my French, and this is really one of the best ways to tackle it. Next goal. This one, nah. Was to read 15% non-white or authors of color. As you can see, I haven't really hit that point yet. I'm now at 32% authors of color, and I do appreciate that authors of color is not just black authors or not just Arabic authors, but that they are divided into different categories, we could say. I hate, by the way, this way of putting people into boxes, but it does help me diversify. I mean, I don't think that if I didn't have this goal, I would still read diversely like I do now. I mean, it would be worse. But yeah, the part that white authors take up in this pie chart is still too big. But what I've realized is that one of the reasons for that is that when I look at the books that I have on my TBR, those are mostly from white authors. So this is a goal that does not align with my idea of also reading books for my TBR. So what I need to start doing, and I want to start doing, is being more aware of what I buy, of the voices that I buy that I have on my TBR, or that I get from the library, or that I get from Mini Beep, obviously, or that I borrow from people, whatever. Books that come into my life. Because right now it just doesn't align with other things. And that's a problem. I mean, then I'm always going to be split up between wanting to do this, but those two being different. But I'm going to keep this goal. I think it's important. It is something that I still want to continue doing. At the same time, I don't have to hate myself if things don't work. I mean, I don't necessarily hate myself, but this is a stretch goal, and that's good. I just want to do better. Then we have one German book a month, in the whole of the year, I mean. I haven't done that one yet, but I have 2 books lying waiting for me, so that should be fine. I just haven't made the time yet. But I'm gonna keep this goal. I like it. It's not a difficult one. Then we have 4 gender non-conforming authors. So that means 1 every quarter, and I have now read 1 for the first quarter, and I've actually already read a book by another gender non-conforming and non-binary author. So I'm doing well on this one, and I don't think that I'm going to prioritize it. Well, I'm not going to prioritize it. No, you know what? I am going to prioritize it in the second quarter because I've already done this and then I can feel good about myself. And I probably will do it in the third quarter as well because I have this book that I really want to read. That is very anyway. So I'm going to keep that one. However, that does also make me think of the sexuality of the authors. Again, these are weird categories to have, and it was not something that I wanted to take up in my goals, but just look at and take into account, just look at how I'm doing. And this is my pie chart when it comes to the sexuality of the authors. And as you can see, I'm on approximately 70% hetero authors and only about 7% queer authors, the rest being unknown. And I don't really like how that's split up. But as I'm trying to cut myself some slack, at least for the next quarter, I don't think I should prioritize it right now, and I want to look at it maybe the third or fourth quarter to maybe just spend some more time doing that than reading books, diverse book then, and maybe also by grouping them, having but because I'm trying to give myself a little bit more slack and appreciate a little bit more and get over this feeling of being overwhelmed, I'm not going to prioritize this, at least for the next quarter. This is without looking at it, what it is. I'm just gonna leave it like that for that and look at what it is for the second half of the year. I think that's the best way I have to do with myself right now. Then we've got the rule of not reading any translated books if I could have read it in the original language. That has to do with that a book written in a certain language, if you can read the book in the language that has been written in, you're gonna get so much more out of it versus when it has been translated. And as I speak 3 to 4 languages, this is something that I can do. So I have looked at my list of books. Right now I have read 10 books that have been translated. So out of a total of, I think I'm at 29. That is a third, which is nice. I mean, reading translated books is not something that I focus on because it's just part of what I do already. 4 of those, I believe, are books that I could have read in the original language, but 3 were books that I already owned in French. So those are The Subtle Knife and 2 Narnia books that I just have in French because I've had that ever since I was a kid. And one is The Return from Hisham Matar that I read in Dutch because it was in Dutch at my library instead of reading it in English. And those are parameters that I accept being in because I don't want to buy books when I already have them or have access to them unless I really, really, really love them. So this is not bad. This is what I wanted also. Last year I found myself reading books in a certain language, just not knowing that the original language was something that I could have gotten as well. So I'm doing better on that, so that's good. I'm doing good on this goal. Last one was reading a maximum of 10 books a month, and I'm afraid to say that I did not do that in March. And I'm going to, this goal, I put it in because I have so many things I like to do, therefore I like to sew, I like to do sports, etc. And there are some things that I just don't do because I'm reading a book. It's good that I'm loving to read a book, but I also want to sew. So I am going to prioritize that. I am going to keep my goal of reading a maximum of 10 books a month, and I'm actually going to stop reading books if I'm finished. I think that is going to be the only way to do this. Now there is one other category that I wanted to talk about that I had decided that I should just keep into account but not make a goal of, and that is reading non-fiction. Right now I have read only 14% books of non-fiction, and I wish that was higher. It was something that last year was at 25 and I was really happy about that. But even though this wasn't a goal, even though I should prioritize, but I am not going to take into account, it's not bad enough for me to actually take action on it, especially seeing that I'm going to give myself a little bit more slack for the second quarter of the year. Now before I let you go or you abandon this video, I also have the topic of the projects that I'm a part of, which also consists a big part of my reading because I participate in Invisible Cities, which is 3 books a month for how I picked it up. And then I have 2 book clubs that I'm a part of, one being a book club that I'm going to join for the first time this month, and that reads books from the French speaking part of the world, which I love. And one is my book club that I've been a part of for about 5 years now, I think. And I talked about this a little bit already in my video about being overwhelmed, but I've decided that when it comes to Invisible Cities, I'm not going to read books from countries that I've already read a book from. Initially I did this because what I love about reading from different parts of the world is that you learn that you know so little, and when you read something from one country you want to learn more from the country. So reading a second book was great, but it's not something that I should prioritize. It's even worse, it's something that I should really let go because I'm doing too many things and it's not making me feel great. I mean, it's not making me feel bad, but it's not making me feel great. So for example, for next month North Korea is on the list and I'm going to let that one go. There are books that I want to read, but that I don't want to read badly enough to prioritize them right now. I think that is going to be very good for me. I need to evaluate after the first evening that I'm going to participate in the book club about books written from the French-speaking part of the world, what I'm going to do with that. I hope it's going to be good. And when it comes to my other book club, sometimes I think I should only participate with the books that I think I'm going to like. But one of the great things about book clubs is that they make you read books that you normally wouldn't have picked up, and then when you end up liking one, you end up discovering something that you didn't know you liked. That is so great, and I shouldn't miss up on that. Especially when it's reading something for a book club. I mean, I'm going to accept that I DNF a book if I'm not liking it, but I should make an effort. So next month we're reading Gilead by I don't even know who, and I was hesitating about maybe not reading it, but I'm going to, because it will probably bring me something good. Unless if I dive into what it's about and I think, oh, I'm really not going to like this, that is something else. But when I don't know, I should try it. I think that is still going to be a positive thing. And I'm also going to be limiting buddy reads. I love buddy reading with random people, but it should be just a maximum of 1 a month. Otherwise, it's just not feasible, and I feel guilty about half making plans with people and then not following up on them and just kind of hoping that they forget me. And at the same time hoping that we do it because I do like it. For example, I still have plans to read a French book with Laura from Laura Reach Pages, but right now when I look at my calendar I have no idea when we would fit it in. But I also know that when we do it, it's going to be great. So Laura, please not in May. Please only in June. I want to fit you in, but I also need to feel sane. So yeah, those are my thoughts right now on my goals for the second quarter, or at least what's rest of it. So to summarize, I hope I'm not going to forget because I haven't written it down right now, but I want to continue reading at least 20% books in French. I want to read approximately 20% of authors of color. I want to read 1 German book. I want to read 4 gender non-conforming authors, or at least so one every quarter. I want to not read a book in a translated language if I could have read the original. I want to read a maximum of 10 books a month. I am not going to read books for Invisible Cities countries that I've already read. I'm going to do a maximum of 1 buddy read a month. And was that it? I think that was it. If I forgot it, it's going to be added to the list. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts of this absolutely every time. Again, the comments that I got about feeling overwhelmed kind of really helps. And yeah, I'll talk to you in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.